I wanted to do a lot more how-tos on my blog and decided that for this particular how-to, which is going to be how to do a blowout at home on yourself, it would be much easier to do a video than to actually try and take pictures of each step and show, because there are a couple things that you do with your hands and the brush that are a little bit harder to photograph. So bear with me, this is my first video blog and it's probably going to be way too long, but let's get started. So the first thing that I do after I come out of the shower is I'll put my hair up. I comb my bangs down so that they don't dry really weird, and then I will put my hair up in a towel like this, and I like to do this type of thing rather than like the big giant towel just because it's easier. And the way to do that, I can show you really quickly, is to take a towel over your shoulders, and you're going to have the two corners meet in the front and hold them with one hand. And my hair is kind of long, so I need to kind of get it up there first, but usually if your hair is shorter, you can just kind of pull the middle of the back up to the center point, and then your hair tucks in. You make these like ear flap little things, and then tuck those behind your head. And I let my hair stay up in this for a while, so there's a lot of moisture that's been pulled out of it, which also makes the blow dry process easier. And my bangs, as you can see, have naturally air dried. I like the way they look better when I do that. Just personal preference. You can kind of do what you want. If you have curly hair, you obviously can't do that because you need to pull out the curl, otherwise they'll set funny. Curly girls know what I'm talking about. Next thing you need to do is prep your hair with product. So I'm going to put in a little bit of a leave-in conditioner, just a few drops. I like this argan oil stuff. That's one of my favorite things. I've been using it for a couple of years now. It really, really helps my hair feel nice and soft and protects it from the heat. And it's just a nice barrier to put between your hair and the heat. The next thing I do is a volumizer. Right now I just have this Bedhead Superstar stuff that's left over from a purchase a long time ago. It lasts forever, and I can't bear with throwing something away when there's still something usable in it. So then I'll put a lot of that at the root, because it's a little bit of a volumizer and heat protectant. And then whatever's left on my hands after putting most of it through, I'll put it on the ends. And then I'll start blow drying. I don't part my hair at first because I don't want to give myself a super like flat top. So if you keep it all back away from your face and blow dry with a lot of root lift, you will not have as flat of hair. Okay, so this part's going to be really weird because I'm going to be blow drying. I'll probably edit it out, or I'll do it in fast motion and make you laugh at me. But the first thing I do is blow dry as much as I can with just my hands until my hair is almost 100% dry. So there's just a little bit of moisture left in it at the end of that. And then I'll clip up sections and show you the next step. I'm going to stop real quick. One thing you'll notice is that I try to blow dry mostly at the roots first and then work my way out towards the ends. And that's the best way to do it because your hair is heavy and a lot of moisture will hide back here. And if you don't get your hair 100% dry during a blowout, it will revert back to whatever your natural texture is, whether that's straight and fine and then it just goes flat, or if it's curly, you'll get a little bit of curl reverting back in underneath your hair, where it's still wet if you left it wet. So definitely start from the roots underneath and get everything nice and dry here first before moving on to the midsection. And then the very ends you can leave if they're still a little bit wet, that's fine, because when you're doing your brush work, that'll take care of itself. Okay, so now my hair is mostly dry. It's still got a little bit of dampness in the ends, but that's mostly through here. And one way you can tell if your hair is all the way dry is even after you've got it blow dried and it's a little bit hot at the root, if the section that you've just blow dried cools down pretty quickly and it feels cold to the touch, there's still moisture in there. So that's a good tip to remember. So there's two ways that you can finish your blowout. If you have really curly hair and you want to straighten it out, you can do everything that I've done, pulling out with a lot of tension at the roots to pull your curl out. And then when you get to this phase, your hair is going to be really fluffy and fuzzy from blowing the curl out. And at that point, I would take a big paddle brush like this and work through in sections. And you can, I think it's best if you clip up your hair about half up if you're going to do like a paddle brush technique, just so you can get all the curl at your roots underneath a little bit better. So just kind of loosely clip it up with my favorite kind of clip. And then you're going to take the sections of the hair that are exposed. And usually what I would do is you're going to take the paddle brush and do a rocking motion. So you rock it backwards and then forwards. And that's going to get your hair interlocked in the brush really well. And you just take your blow dryer and blow straight down this direction. And as you do that, it's going to pull your curl out. And it'll take a couple passes if your hair is really curly to really get all of the curl out. But then once you get that in there and it's pulled out and it's nice and dry, you can do a finishing move, which when I need to use my hands to section hair, I'll put the blow dryer between my knees. So you'll probably see me do that a little bit during the rest of this video. But then you'll take the section of hair and put your paddle brush underneath it. And then pick your blow dryer back up and roll it down just really slowly. The slower you go, the less passes you have to make over your hair. And then you can kind of turn it a little bit under at the ends, and that'll give you a nice and smooth finish. I have straight hair. It's really boring. I'm not going to do that on my hair today, but that's just a way you can do that. So you would continue that technique all over your entire head for paddle brushing it out, and do the same thing on the top when you take the top section down. I am going to actually use a round brush just to give my hair a little bit of movement. I don't want it to be like curly. I use a curling iron for that. It's easier. But I do want to give it a little bit of bend and movement, and so I'll show you how I do that. First thing I'll do is actually pre-section my hair into the sections I'm going to use. I'm going to just do 3 today for time's sake. I'll do more if I'm feeling like I really want to give it a lot of shape and movement. So take another little claw clip, or not claw clip, these are like flat clips. They're called duckbill clips. It's kind of a funny name, but that's what they're called. So then you're going to take the second section around your head. It doesn't have to be super clean, but just enough so that everything's separated out. And then I'm going to twist that up so it's out of the way. And the reason I section ahead of time is so that I don't have to stop, turn the blow dryer off, set it down, section, reclip in between sections as I'm going. I can just pull a section down and then take a small subsection and work on the next thing with a round brush. So with that being said, the first thing I'm going to do, and I'll just show you without the blow dryer on so that you can actually hear what I'm saying, is I'll take a section, and usually the bottom one I just divide it into 2 because it's easier to pull it forward so you can see what you're doing because you can't really see in the back of your head. So then I'll just take the brush and get it right at the root, and I'll go through with the blow dryer and just kind of do quarter turns all the way down the hair shaft until I get to the end. And then as I get to the end, I'll heat it up and then roll everything up a little bit slowly so that the heat gets to it. And then what I like to do is after it's dried all the way and I can tell that it's nice and hot to the touch, I release it in the shape of the curl. So this one takes a little bit of practice to try to not get your hair tangled, which is why I recommend using a bigger brush than a smaller brush. Smaller brushes you definitely will get stuck. And I like boar bristle, but if you're a beginner and you haven't done this before, it's actually a little bit easier to use a wire brush with like a metal or wood center because they tend to be less tangly and easier to get out of your hair if you get too tangled. So I'll show you a couple sections now with the blow dryer on. And again, blow dryer always goes between my knees when I need 2 hands to position the hair, so you'll see me do that. So here's a really good example of what happens if your hair gets tangled. The first thing is don't panic because you'll rip through your hair and really rip out a lot and make it worse if you're panic. But the best thing to do is just kind of grab a hold of the center of the hair and gently pull. Usually it'll release, and if it doesn't, then you might ask somebody if you have a housemate or a family member that can help you untangle it. That would be better than trying to rip it out yourself. And you'll notice too, when I do the center back of my head, especially when it's a section I can't easily pull forward, I will turn to the side in the mirror so I can see what I'm doing. And I can take the section and roll it up and get it nice and detangled before I really run the brush through. And then when I do that, I almost run out of space because my hair is getting a little long. I think I need a haircut. But then I'll go through and heat it up, and that's when you do your release. And that's, again, that part always gets a little tingly. So just don't be afraid to give it a little bit of a tug. It's not going to totally fall out, but definitely use both hands. All right, I'm going to continue doing all of this section the same way, just taking up a small subsection of hair from this. And usually, a word about sectioning, if your brush is a certain diameter, you don't want the size of your section to be bigger than the diameter or the width of your brush so that it all fits on there. So that's a good word about, or a good way to figure out how to make your subsections a correct size for the amount of hair you can handle. You can also always go even smaller if you have particularly curly hair and you're trying to press your natural curl out of your hair. Okay. So in that last section, you'll see how, well, I keep hitting the counter with my blow dryer, which is really annoying and also alarming to myself, and I make funny faces on camera, sorry. With these very front sections, rather than roll them under the entire time, I kind of like the way they look when they're flowing away. So I'll roll under first just to kind of get a little bit of shape and to get the final amount of wetness out of the hair. And then I will roll it backwards away from the face, this direction, and heat it up. And once it's done, and you'll see I've got layers around my face, so I usually end up having to go through a couple times and just wrap them into it with both hands, which is another reason I always put the blow dryer down between my knees when I'm needing to section. And then once it's nice and hot, I let it go and twirl it away from the face. And if you have a hard time doing that release motion with this the first couple times that you try it, don't be hard on yourself. It takes a lot of practice. I do this every day for work on other people, so I've had a lot of practice on other people's heads. And B, if you can't, just get your hair out of it and then use your fingers to twirl it. That's also another easy way to do it. But if you want to try to do it the other way, just practice, practice, practice. I can't say that enough. A lot of people get discouraged when they try to do their own blowouts, and it's because they can't do it perfectly the first time. And trust me, it takes a lot of work. You're never going to do it perfectly the first time you try anything, so why should you put that pressure on yourself? So I'm going to take the next section. I'm actually going to bring these sides down and do these first and save the very, very center top for the end, and I'll show you why in a second. But it's just kind of a personal preference thing. If you still want to keep bigger sections the way that you've been seeing me do it, you can just do the whole top at the same time the way that I'm going to do these sides. But I like to blow the center away and back, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. It just gives a little more volume. And now I'm going to just kind of finish these sections off. So once you have those sections looking the way you want, you can always kind of twist them. And the reason I do this is because if your hair cools in a certain position, that's how it's going to set. That's the key to doing any sort of set, whether it's blow drying or curling iron or hot rollers or whatever. The power of the curl stays better if you let it cool in its position first before releasing it and like running your fingers through it and messing with it and all of that. This final section is the very tippity top. It's like if you had a mohawk, this would be the center part of your head. This is where you would have a mohawk. So what I do with this section is I like to just kind of divide it up into smaller subsections. That one's a little big, and you can kind of feel for yourself and allow the other stuff to just fall to the side. And I'm going to take each section and blow dry it straight back away from my face. It not only helps give a little bit of volume because I can get good root lift, I'm going to pull all the way up as I work these sections through, but then also the curl is going to go away from the face the way that these at the top have been, and it tumbles really nicely. It's just a good way to finish the blowout and give it a nice look. So without further ado, the final section of the blowout. That last section, and usually I'll just kind of let it cool for a little bit before I do anything else to it. This is a good time too to kind of check and make sure you got your roots dry. You can kind of run your fingers through it. If it's cold under here, it's still wet. So hit it with a blow dryer again just to make sure that you don't get any reverting back to your natural texture, because the whole goal of doing this is to make your hair look finished and done and not like it dried naturally. Even though I let my bangs dry naturally. I know someone will probably write that in the comments later, like, oh, but you let your bangs dry naturally. It's just because that's how my hair works best for this area. I don't like them to have a lot of volume in body because they're full fringe. If I had side swept bangs, I would blow dry them because they require that to sweep to the side. Okay, so it's not all the way cool, but I'm not going to make you wait for that. So then when I do that, my natural part kind of just comes into play, and my hair has a little bit of shape and wave to it, and that's how you do a blowout on yourself. If you decide that you're going out and you want it to stay a little bit longer, just hit it with a little bit of texture spray or hairspray once it's cooled down, and that'll help the shape that you've put into it stay a little bit better. If you don't care if it's just like normal every day, then just let it go. But the reason that this is a good thing and why it's important is if you start with a good blowout, your hair looks a lot better throughout the days. And I am not an everyday hair washer. I am definitely like twice a week at the most. And it's better for your scalp if you can not do it every day. Every other day would be good. A little bit longer in between is best for most people, unless you happen to be a very oily person. So this makes my hair look a lot better for the next 4 or so days that I won't wash it. Even if I, work out and I have it up in a ponytail, it still looks better afterwards. And I'll put little tips and tricks on my blog later for people who are doing the not washing in between. That'll be for a future post. But for now, this is how you do a blowout. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can to try to help you out. I hope this was helpful. I hope that it shows you that it is achievable to do this for yourself. It's still not exactly the same as if a hairdresser did it, and if one of my coworkers did this for me, it would look way better than it does now. It has to do with leverage. I can only get so far above my head with the brush, but if you're sitting in a chair and someone can pull everything out, it's going to be that much better. But this is still a really nice way to start your freshly washed hair off, and it's going to look a lot better than if it were to dry naturally. For the most part. I mean, some people prefer that, but if you want to learn how to do this, this is the way to do it. Or it's my way to do it. It's not the way. There are other ways to blow your hair out, but I've had a lot of success with this, especially in doing them on myself at home. Hope that's helpful. Sorry for the rambling, and thanks for bearing with me through my first video blog.